This is the African savannah. It's one of nature's most iconic landscapes. It's instantly associated with Attenborough documentaries and dramatic wide shots of wildebeest migrating into the horizon. But this is not the whole story. While you can still find gigantic, unaltered plains like the Serengeti up in East Africa, here in South Africa, the bush takes on a slightly different form. This family of elephants blend into their surroundings as if they've been here for generations. But in actual fact, they were born in a completely different reserve and moved here on the back of a truck. This process is called translocation, and it's far from out of the ordinary here. It's one of many actions taken to uphold a unique industry, and that's the wildlife industry of South Africa, which is exactly what I'll be exploring in this short documentary. Habitat loss is the biggest threat to wildlife. Ecosystems worldwide are being compressed and scattered into fragmented patchworks. Now more than ever, conservation is a desperate balancing act between the needs of wild populations and the demands of human societies. In South Africa, this trade-off has resulted in a vast and entangled industry that has commodified the African wild and all the species it holds. I decided to interview a conservationist and a private game reserve owner to find out more about this privatization of the wild and where the animals fit into it. I spoke to Justin, who manages and owns the oldest private game reserve in the Eastern Cape area. What I really wanted to find out from him was his perceptions and priorities when it comes to managing a game reserve, and whether it's done to appeal to tourists or to support a wild ecosystem. His answer was that their primary aim is to assimilate as natural an environment as possible.
That's what we are trying to get to, is to have the most natural environment and sustainable environment for the animals. That's first prize. Mm-hmm. And the byproduct is people coming to look at that.
Yeah.
We're not setting it up to cater for the people.
Yeah.
If I can put it that way.
Yeah.
We set it up so that the environment is right.
But it was when I asked him about the setting up of a game reserve, he gave a far more business-like description.
Obviously, to have a game reserve, game is wildlife. So you're no longer farming with domestic stock. You're farming with wildlife, and you need to decide, do you want to cater for the viewing market or the hunting market? There are many, many hunting farms or game farms in Africa or South Africa. It's up to each individual game reserve to create their own atmosphere and their own product at the end of the day. It's up to the guest to decide what type of product they're looking for. So everybody caters to a different type of market.
As we reached the end of our interview, we spoke more about the business end of the reserves, especially during COVID when there was no business at all. He gave his prediction if the business had never returned.
About 80% of South Africa's wildlife is in the hands of private landowners.
Yeah.
They would have to get rid of their wildlife. Where are you going to put it? You can't go and put it in the national parks. They're full.
Yeah.
So everything would just be culled.
Yeah.
And you would have to farm carrots or cows.
After my conversation with Justin, I still had a few suspicions about this seemingly financial motivation behind these reserves. So I asked Amanda Hall, the general manager of Inkonzo Wildlife Research, about her thoughts on conservation for profit and how it matches up against the pristine savannas of East Africa. She told me much about ethical hunting and the intensive oversight in the wildlife industry, but she also told me about how this representation can be hijacked.
I think that the biggest thing that negatively impacts the conservation industry and wildlife management and just biodiversity support in Africa is the misuse of the word conservation for profit. They'll claim it's for conservation. It will be claimed as a marketing tactic that this is for conservation for the animals, when in that instance, it's purely for profit going into the owner's money. It is a business for profit. That is when I have an issue with trophy hunting or hunting.
Her concluding remarks spoke to a global context and the importance of South Africa's wildlife industry.
The human population is growing. Humans need more land. They need more places to live. They need more places to farm. So I would say it's really important that we study this now, that we study these small isolated populations now, how they change, what it impacts their behavior, how it impacts the environments. And so that as we move forward into this, new age of even fewer natural landscapes, that we know how to manage them, we know how to protect them.
For a really long time, through nature documentaries and so many different forms of media, we've been given this exciting idea of the wilderness. Pristine mountain ranges, mysterious jungle and tundra, somewhere you want to discover and explore away from the claustrophobia of everyday life. Even The Lion King as a kid gave me this picture of some paradise of never-ending grasslands. But in reality, most of these wild areas are just islands clinging on in an increasingly built-up landscape. And that seems to be exactly what the South African wildlife industry has taken advantage of. It's creating an experience of the untamed savannah to paying visitors, and through that, conserving what's left of it. From what I've learned by talking to two people who represent either end of the spectrum, this industry overreaches on the revenue end of things. Not every aspect of it is justified outside of their profit margins. It's a poignant reflection of the world that we're living in, but it does seem to be a necessary system if these wild populations are to keep on existing. Although this environment is artificially maintained to support a wild ecosystem, the ecosystem is still there all the same. South Africa's population is rising rapidly every year, and if there's to be a place for the wilderness in this increasingly uncertain future, it could be crucial down the line to have this industry that's built around keeping it relevant to the people that live here.